Okay, hi everyone. So now move to chapter number 2 in managerial economics, okay, which is a topic about market forces. Market forces are supply, demand, and supply. Okay, so for this chapter, okay, uh, we will learn and explain the law of demand and supply and identify factors that cause demand and supply to shift, okay? Whether it shift to right or left, okay? And then this chapter we will learn how to calculate the consumer surplus and producer surplus and describe what they mean. Then in this chapter, we will explain price determination in a competitive market and show how equilibrium changes in response to changes in determinants and demand and supply. Okay. We will explain and illustrate how excise taxes, ad valorem taxes, what it does mean of ad valorem taxes, price floors and price ceilings impact the functioning of a market, and apply supply and demand analysis as a qualitative forecasting tool to see the big picture in a competitive market. Okay. Okay, that's an overview of this chapter. Okay, market demand curve, and then we will try to look the market supply uh, curve, and we will explain about the market equilibrium, price restriction, and comparative statistics. So suppose a closing manufacturers desires information about the impact of its pricing decision on the demand of its gene in a small foreign market. So to obtain this information, it might engage in market research to determine how many pairs of genes consumer would purchase each year of at alternative price per unit. Okay, so the number from such a market survey would look something like uh, in the market research reveal that that if a gene were priced at $10 per pair, so that means maybe we can see 60,000 pairs of jeans will be sold per year at the $30 per pair. Okay, maybe it will decrease to 20,000 pairs of jeans will be sold annually. Okay, so in this curve, okay, what we call as a market demand curve, uh, it will shows the amount of a good that will purchase at alternative prices holding other factors constant. So in consumption, that's other factors constant. So law of demand, for example, like jeans just now. So let's say the price is here, what we give an example at $10, and then decrease to increase, sorry, from here, okay, maybe $10 and increase to maybe $30. Okay, so the quantity of demand, okay, from let's say just now 60,000 jeans per year will decrease to 20,000 jeans per year. Okay, that's the law of demand. The demand curve is downwards or sloping like this. Okay. Okay, what are determinants? what are the determinants of demand, or some of economists we call it as a demand shifter. Okay, so we can see from the list here. Okay, uh, okay, demand shifter or determinants of demand. We will discuss five factors, or five determinants of demand. Okay, the first one is income. Okay, we can see it categorized as a normal good and inferior goods. Yeah? So because income affect the ability of consumer to purchase a good, changes in income also affect how much consumer will buy at any price. So in graphical terms, a change in income shift the entire demand curve. So whether an increase in income shift the demand curve to the right or to the left depend on the nature of consumer consumption pattern. So accordingly, economists distinguish between two types of goods, normal and inferior good. So a good whose demand increase, that means shift to right, shift to right. When income rise in the call is called a normal good. Okay, so normal good may include goods such as stick, airline travel, designer jeans. As income goes up, producer typically buy more of this good at any price. Conversely, when consumers suffer a decline in income, so the demand for a normal good will decrease. That means shift to left, right? Maybe we can see one example here. Okay, all right. Okay, this is an example for a normal good. So just in case if uh, price increase, that mean uh, demand curve will shift to right, and then if the price decrease, sorry, uh, okay, if the price increase, that mean demand for that will increase. Yeah, its demand is not price, sorry, income. The income increase, I mean demand for that good is increased. So that means changes in income tend to have a profound effect on the demand for durable goods, and this effect are typically amplified in developing countries and rural areas. For instance, farmers in India enjoy higher income thanks to the impact on crop of beneficial monsoon at 2004. As a result, the demand in rural area of India for tractor and motorcycle surged, almost tripling the level of demand in the previous year. So by 2009, this surge in demand reversed due to significant reduction in consumer income stemming from a global economic recession. So the demand for durable in developed countries also declined dramatically, and automakers was especially hard hit. Okay, that's and some instant in increase in income reduce the demand for a good. So economists refer to such a good as an inferior good. So increase in income reduce the demand for a good. That's what we call as inferior good. Okay. bus travel, generic jeans are possible example of inferior good. As income goes up, consumer typically consume less of this good at each price. It is important to point out and to remember that by calling such goods inferior, we do not imply that they are a poor quality. Okay, we use this term simply to define a product that consumers purchase less of when their income rise. So it's not necessarily okay that's goods is low quality. Okay, and then the second shifter or second determinant, okay, is prices of related good. Prices of related good. So we can see there are two prices, okay, related goods, prices of substitute and sub prices of complement. So changes in prices of related good generally shift the demand curve for a good. For example, if the price of Coke increase, most consumer will begin to substitute Pepsi because the relative price of Coke is higher than before. So as more and more consumers substitute Pepsi for Coke, the quantity of uh, Pepsi demanded at each price will tend to increase. So in effect, an increase in the price of Coke increase the demand for Pepsi. Okay. So not all of good are substitute. In fact, an increase in the price of goods such as computer software may lead consumer to purchase fewer computer at each price. So goods that interact in this manner are called complement. Okay, and then third determinant of demand, you can see advertising and consumer taste. So that's another variable that is held constant when drawing a given demand curve, is that the level of advertising. The level of advertising. So an increase in advertising shift the demand curve to the right. Shift the demand curve to the right. And advertising also influence demand by altering the underlying taste of consumer. For example, advertising that promote the latest fad in clothing may increase the demand for a specific fashion item by making consumer perceive it's the thing to buy. Okay, so this type of advertising also known as a persuasive advertising. Okay, and of course you can see from there determinant of demand also depend or affect from the population. So the demand for a product is changes in the size can influence also change influenced by the changes in the size and composition of population. Okay? So generally, as the population rises, more and more individuals wish to buy a given product, and this has the effect of shifting the demand curve to the right as well. Okay, when the 20th century, the demand curve for food product shifted to the right considerably with the increasing population. Okay, and then consumer expectation. Consumer expectation. So changes in consumer expectation also can change the position of the demand curve for the product. For example, if consumers suddenly expect the price of automobile to be significantly higher next year, so the demand for automobile today will increase. Okay, so that's a very simple example. When consumer expect tension can affect the demand curve. Oh, sorry, the demand okay, the demand curve from the one point to another one point. So another factors, okay, other factor for uh, uh, demand shift, okay, we can simply note that any variable that affect the willingness or ability of consumer to purchase a particular goods is a potential demand shifter. Okay, for example, healthcare awareness affect the demand for cigarettes, or maybe another example, the birth of baby affect the demand for diapers. All right. So by now you should understand the factors that affect demand and how to use a graph to illustrate those influences. Okay? So the final step in our analysis of the demand side of market is to show that all the factors that influence demand may be summarized in what economists refer as a demand function. So the demand function for good X describe how much X will be purchased at alternative price of X and related good. Alternative level of income and alternative value of other variable that affect demand. Okay, so formally we will use this kind of equation. Okay, the quantity of demand goods X equal to a few variable at all the variable that's influence the quantity of demand. Okay, the price of good X, for example, maybe this price of good X is a complement or a substitute of goods X, and then price of related good Y. Okay, substitute goods, complement good, M, that means income, and then other variable affecting the demand, right? Okay, and then for inverse demand function, we just change the price as a function of quantity demanded. Okay, almost similar like the demand function, just only in this case, price as a function of quantity demanded. Okay. Okay, this is changes in quantity demanded. Okay, the example for changes in quantity demanded. From point A to B. Okay, from point A to B. Okay, that means from price $10, let's say $10. Okay, and decrease to price $6. So it's what we call as a quantity increase in quantity demanded. Okay, increase in quantity demanded. And then this is a graph showing us the change in demand, the change in demand. So compare with this graph. Okay, you can see just only one line of demand here, and then this one not the quantity of demanded. This is increase in demand. Okay, increase in demand. Okay, with the same price. With the same price, that means demand not only changes because of not change because of the price. So from D0 to D1. Okay, with the same price. So we now show how a manager can use the demand curve to ascertain the value a consumer of group of consumer receive from a product. So the concept developed in this section are particularly useful in marketing and other disciplines that emphasize strategies such as value pricing and price discrimination. Yes, call as. So by the law of demand, the amount of consumer is willing to pay for an additional unit of good fall as more of the good is consumed. For instance, imagine that's the demand curve in, okay, let me show you in this graph. Okay, okay. So just imagine that demand curve in this graph A represent your demand for water immediately after participating in a 10k run. So initially you are willing to pay a very high price. In this case, let's say $5 per liter, okay, for the first drop of water. So as you consume more water, the amount you are willing to pay for an additional drop decline from maybe $5 to $6.99, and so on as you move down the demand curve. Notice that after you have consumed an entire liter of water, you are willing to pay only $4 per liter for another drop. Okay, so once you have enjoyed 2 liter of water, you are willing to pay only $3 per liter for another drop. Okay, so to find your total value or benefit of $2 of water, we simply add up the maximum amount you are willing to pay for each of these drop of water between 0 and 2 liters. So this amount correspond to the area underneath the demand curve in graph A up to the quantity of 2 liters. So since the area of this region is $8, so the total value you receive from $2 of water is $8. So fortunately you don't have to pay different prices for the different drop of water you consume. Instead you face a per unit price of say $3 per liter and get to buy as many drops or even liters as you want at that price. So given the demand curve in figure or graph A, when the price is $3, you will choose to purchase $2 of water. So in this case, your total out of pocket expend for the 2 liters of water is $6. So since you value 2 liters of water at $8 and only have to pay $6 for it, you are getting $2 in value over and above the amount you have to pay for water. So this extra value is known a consumer surplus. Consumer surplus. The value consumer get from a good but do not have to pay for. So this concept is important to managers because it tells how much extra money customer would be willing to pay for a given amount of purchased product. So more generally, consumer surplus is the area above the price paid for a good but below the demand curve. For instance, the shaded triangle in graph B, that's a shaded triangle in graph B. To see why, recall that I illustrate the consumer surplus of consumer who buy quantity 0 demand unit of price P0 good. Okay, to see why, recall that each point on the demand curve indicates the value of the consumer of another unit of the good. So the difference between each price on demand curve and the price P0X paid represents surplus. The value that the consumer receive but does not have to pay for. So when we add up the surplus received to each unit between 0 and x 0 q quantity of 0x, this sum equal the shaded region. So we obtain the consumer surplus associated with purchasing quantity of 0x unit at price of p, okay, 0x each. Okay. So managers can use the notion of consumer surplus to determine the total amount consumers would be willing to pay for multi-unit packages. So while this will be discussed in detail in the another chapter, we where we examine the pricing strategy. So we can get a great deal if the company offer a lot of bang for the bucks. Okay, and then they'll provide some good value. So the total value greatly exceed the total amount paid. That's what we call as consumer surplus is large. It's a great deal. We got a lousy deal. Okay, the car dealer drive a hard bargain, and then I almost decided not to buy it, and they try to squeeze the very last cents from me, and total amount paid is close to total value, and the consumer surplus is low. Okay, from this example, you can see the customer surplus in this case. Okay, okay, consumer surplus, the value received but not paid for. Okay, it's minus 2, and then plus, okay, 6 minus 2, plus 4. Okay, 4 minus 2. Okay, that's 4 minus 2 equal to 12. Okay, the customer surplus, okay, 24 minus 8 equal to 16. Okay, that's the value of units. Okay. And then in the previous section, we are focused on demand, so which represent half of the forces that determine the price in market. So the other determinant is market supply. So now we move to market supply curve. Okay, if you compare with the demand supply curve, okay, so this supply curve is upward sloping. Upward sloping. Okay, so the supply curve shows the amount of a good that will be produced at alternative prices. Okay. Okay, this is an example for decrease. It If the demand shift to left, that means decrease in supply, and then supply curve shift to left, it will decrease in supply. shift to right, will that mean it increasing in supply. Same like demand function or demands, okay, analysis. We also have a supply shifter or determinant of supply. The first one we can see from here, okay, is input prices. So the supply curve reveals how much producers are willing to produce at alternative prices. Yeah. So as production costs change, the willingness of producer to produce also can change. Yeah. So in particular, the price of an input rises. Okay? Producer are willing to produce less output. Okay? So this decrease in supply is depicted as a leftward, as we can see from previous slide. Leftward shift in the supply curve. Okay. And then the second one is technology or government regulation. So changes in technology, changes in government regulation also can affect the position of supply curve. Changes that make it possible to produce a given output at a lower cost, such as at the such as in mass production. Okay. Conversely, a natural disaster that destroy existing technology and government regulations, such as emission standard that have an adverse effect on business, shift the supply curve to the left. Okay, and then number of firm. So the number of firm in industry affect the position of the supply curve. So as an additional firm enter an industry, more and more output are available at each given price. So this is reflected by a rightward shift in the supply curve. Similarly, as a firm leave an industry, fewer units are sold at each price, and the supply will decrease. That means shift to left. Okay, and substitute in production, so affect to the supply. Okay, so many firms have technologies that are readily adaptable to several different products. For example, automakers can convert a truck assembly plant into a car assembly plant by altering its production facilities. So when the price of cars rises, yeah, these firms can convert some of their truck assembly line to car assembly line to increase the quantity of car supply. So this has the effect of shifting the truck supply curve to the left. Okay. And taxes. Okay, we have two here. Okay, excise taxes and something maybe we quite rare to hear, ad valorem tax. So the position of supply curve is also affected by taxes. And excise tax is a tax. What does mean of excise tax? Is a tax on each unit of output sold. So where the tax revenue is collected from the supplier. For example, suppose the government levies a tax of, let's say, 20 cents per gallon on gasoline. So since each supplier must now pay the government 20 cents per gallon for each gallon of gasoline sold. So each must receive an additional 20 cents per gallon to be willing to supply the same quantity of gasoline as before the tax. So an excise tax shift the supply curve by the amount of the tax. Okay. So note that at any given price, producers are willing to sell less gasoline after tax than before. Okay, thus an excise tax has the effect of decreasing the supply of goods. Okay. And another form of tax often used by government agency is an ad valorem tax. Sometimes we call it in Malaysia we call it as SST, before GST. So ad valorem literally means according to the value. So an ad valorem tax is a percentage tax. So the sale tag is a well-known example. If the price of good, let's say $1, and a 10% ad valorem tag is attached to the good, so the price after the tag is $1.10, because an ad valorem tag is percentage tag, so it will be higher for high price item. And then last but not least, supply shifter is producer expectation. It's about future price also affect the position of the supply curve. So in effect, selling a unit of output today and selling a unit of output tomorrow are substitutes in production. If firms suddenly expect prices to be higher in the future and the product is not perishable, producer can hold back output today and sell it later or tomorrow at higher price. So this has the effect of shifting the current supply curve to the left, right? This is an example for tax effect. Okay, and same with demand function. Okay, we can see the equation representing the supply curve, the quantity of supply, goods X equal to the price of price of the good X, price of substitute production substitutes, price of input like wages. Price of input can include in anything that's contribute to the cost of production like wages. So other variable affecting supply. Okay? So let's say this is an example for us to understand the supply function. So your research department, the question is, your research department is to estimate that the supply function for high definition television HDTV is given by Q, okay, as X, okay, equal to 2000 plus 3p x minus 4p, okay, and minus pw. Okay, so where px is the price of HDTV. Okay, then we can see represent. All right, so to find out how many television sets are produced, so we insert given value of price into supply function to get it. So let's say here, okay, 2000 plus 3, 400, okay, $400, and then minus 4, $250 per units. Okay, and then minus, okay, 1000 for 1400. Okay. So adding up the number, we find that the total quantity HDTVs produced is 800. Okay, same like supply function, we just do it in another way. Inverse supply function, price as a function of quantity supply. Okay, and then this is a quantity supply. Okay, increase in quantity supply. Okay, based on this graph, you can see, okay, if let's say the price first point, this is I think point A. Okay, we can't see the label of A here, so let's say $10. Okay, so the point A is here to B, so increase in quantity supply, and then this is change in supply, increase in supply. Okay, with same price, let's say $8 here. Okay, Okay, it will increase in supply. Okay, move to right. So just as consumers, that's want price to be as low as possible. So producer want price to be as high as possible. So the supply curve reveal the amount producer will be willing to produce at a given price. As a given price. So alternatively, it indicates the price firm would have to receive to be willing to produce an additional unit of good. Okay, you can see from this example, this figure. Okay, so the supply curve in this figure indicate that a total of 800 unit will be produced at the price is 400. 800 units. Okay, the price of 400, right? So alternatively, if 800 units are produced, producer will have to receive 400 to be induced to produce another unit of the good. So producer surplus is the producer analog to consumer surplus. It is the amount of money producer receive in excess of the amount necessary to induce them to produce the good. More specifically, note that producers are willing to sell each unit of output below 800 unit at a price less than $400. But if the price is 400 dollar, producer receive an amount equal to 400 for each unit of output below 800. So even though they would be willing to sell those individual unit for a lower price. So as you can see from here, geometrically, producer surplus is the area above the supply curve, but below the market price of the good. So that's the shaded area. As you can see from point A, B, and C, the shaded area represent the surplus producer received by selling 800 unit at the price of $400. So an amount above that what would be required to produce each unit of the good. So the shaded area ABC is the producer surplus when the price is 400. Okay. Anyway, producer surplus can be a powerful tools for manager. For instance, suppose the manager of a major fast food restaurant currently purchase 10,000 pound of ground beef each week from a supplier at a price of $1.25 per pound. So the producer surplus the meat supplier earned by selling 10,000 pound at a price of $1.25 per pound. That's the restaurant manager the dollar amount that the supplier is received over and above what it will be willing to accept for the meat. So in other words, the meat supplier's producer surplus is the maximum amount the restaurant could save in meat cost by bargaining the supplier over a package deal for 10,000 pound of meat. Okay. So we will discuss more further about this, in another chapter, how that manager can negotiate such a bargain. Okay, the equilibrium price is a competitive market is determined by interaction of all buyers and sellers in market. So the concept of market supply and market demand makes this notion of interaction more precise. So the price of a good in a competitive market is determined by the interaction of market supply and market demand for the good. Since we focus on the market for a single good, it is convenient to uh, drop subscript at this point, and let P denote the price of this good, and Q the quantity of the good. Okay, the quantity of the good. Okay, this one not really. Okay, this is geometrically we can see this example of a figure. If price is too low, price is too low, okay, we are try to get of this point. Okay, if price is too low, that means the quantity to supply will be will get a shortage here, get a shortage here. Okay, so of course in market equilibrium we try to get a steady state between supply and demand. Okay. So one of the key factor is the price. Let's say in this instance, okay, the price is too low. That means we can see the shortage here very big. Okay. And what happen if a price is too high? Okay, also we have a problem to get a steady state. Yeah? Too much surplus. Yeah. Okay, the previous session show how price and quantities are determined in the free market. So in some instances, government place limit on how much price are allowed to raise or fall, and this restriction can affect the market equilibrium. Okay, so in this chapter, or in this section, we will see, okay, what we call as a price ceiling, okay, and price floor. Okay, price ceiling is the maximum maximum legal price that can be charged. For example, gas price, housing price, okay, proposed restriction on ATM fees, okay, and then price floor, the minimum legal price that can be charged. For example, minimum wage, okay, or agricultural price support. Okay. From this graph, you can see actually when government enforce a price ceiling, it not necessarily you have to, producer uh, has to put their price up until a ceiling price. Okay. Okay, the full economic price paid by a consumer. Yeah. Okay, what we call as a PF. The full economic price paid by a consumer. Okay. PF is thus the amount paid to the firm, amount paid to the firm, PPC. So plus the implicit amount, the implicit amount paid by waiting in the line. Okay, so implicit again, I think in the first chapter we discussed. I explained about the implicit means something that you can't see clearly. Implicit amount paid by waiting in line. Okay, PF minus PC. Okay, so the latter price is paid not in dollars but through opportunity cost, and thus is termed the non-pecuniary price. Okay, call it as a non-pecuniary price. So this is an example from the 1970s. Okay, So ceiling price of gasoline, let's say $1. So 3 hours in line to buy 15 gallons of gasoline. So opportunity cost is $5 per hour. So total value of time spent in line, okay. So 3 hour times 5 equal to 15. So non-pecuniary price per gallon, okay, equal to 1, 15 by $15 by 15 equal to not 1, okay. So full economic price of gallon of gasoline, yeah, is equal to 2, yeah. Here's an example for full economic price calculation. Okay, this is an example for impact of price floor. So how do the equilibrium price and quantity change when a determinant of supply and or demand change? So this we can see from this application, demand and supply analysis. For example, the events in the Wall Street Journal report that the price of PC component are expected to fall by 5 to 8% over the next 6 months. The first scenario, you manage a small firm that manufactures PCs. The second scenario, you manage a small software company. Yeah? So use comparative static analysis to see the big picture. Okay, so comparative static analysis shows how the equilibrium price and quantity will change what a determinant of supply or demand changes. In scenario 1, you can see the step 1, we first look for the big picture, and then the second step we organize an action plan, worry about detail. Okay, the big picture, from here you can see impact of decline in component prices on PC market. Okay, okay. Impact of decline component prices from P0 to P star. Okay, as you can see from the big picture, so the quantity of demand maybe will increase, okay, and supply, okay, quantity for supply will be increased as well. So big picture of an big picture analysis for PC market, equilibrium price of PC will fall, and equilibrium quantity of computer will be increased. So use this to organize an action plan. Who is the subcontractor or suppliers? How about inventories? How about our human resources, marketing, and do I need quantitative estimate or not? And the second scenario for software maker, so more complicated chains of reasoning to arrive at the big picture. The first step, maybe you can use analysis like that in scenario 1 to deduce that slower component prices will lead to a lower equilibrium price for computer, a greater number of computers sold. That's the first step that maybe we can use from the scenario 1. Okay. The second step, how will these changes affect the big picture in the software market? Okay, so this is a big picture, impact of lower price, lower PC price in the software market from, okay, so price, so the demand also will change, uh, will move from D to D star. Okay. So software prices are likely to rise, and more software will be sold. You can see from here. Okay. And I use this to organize an action plan. Okay, as like the scenario 1. Okay, so in conclusion, we can use a supply and demand analysis, to clarify the big picture. We can use supply and demand analysis to clarify the big picture. So the general impact of current event on equilibrium prices and quantities, yeah, and try to organize. We can use supply and demand analysis to organize an action plan. Either changes in production, maybe we need to get our inventories stock, raw material, where we can get it. How about our capacity of human resource planning, and marketing plan, and etc. Okay, so that's all for chapter number 2. I hope that you enjoy this video, and if you have anything that you want to clarify and want to know more further, can keep in touch through WhatsApp or WeChat. Okay, so thank you very much. So have a nice day.